Niall, what's in your notes?
So today, Robbie, Donald Trump is on my mind, and so too is the Irish writer Oscar Wilde. Wilde wants to find a cynic this way, a man who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. That description fits Trump to a T, and it always has. But now the president's cynicism and the grubby mindset summed up in Wilde's famous quote threatens the Middle East all over again. The president wants the United States to take over Gaza. He talks of taking ownership of the territory. He says this could transform Gaza into what he ludicrously calls the Riviera of the Middle East. To facilitate this, he is proposing displacing the Palestinian people who live there. Many of those people have just begun returning to their homes, having endured a 15-month military assault of colossal brutality from Israel. How many of the Palestinians does Trump envision displacing? Let's watch.
How many people are you thinking about?
All of them. I mean, we're talking about probably 1,000,007 people, 1,000,007, maybe 1,000,008. But I think all of them. I think they'll be resettled in areas where they can live a beautiful life and not be worried about dying every day.
This is a bad idea for so many reasons it's hard to know where to begin. It's blatantly illegal, for a start, and it will almost certainly require the United States to use military force, something Trump himself acknowledged. Let's watch.
Mr. President, given what you've said about Gaza, did the U.S. send troops to help secure the security vacuum?
So Saudi Arabia is going to be very helpful, and they have been very helpful. They want peace in the Middle East. It's very simple. We know their leader and their leaders very well. They're wonderful people, and they want peace in the Middle East. As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that. We're going to take over that piece, and we're going to develop it.
But let's not ignore Trump's central error here, the mistake from which all else flows. Trump sees Gaza as real estate, a patch of land that has a material worth but no other value. Gazans see it as home, with all the emotional weight that word carries. To him, it's a site to be redeveloped and sold on. To them, it's the land they have clung to against enormous odds and must never sell out. Trump just doesn't see that. There's no evidence he even understands it. When a female reporter yesterday called out to him, "But it's their home, sir, why would they leave?" he simply ignored the question. And in that ignorance lie the seeds of disaster. Trump's supporters say he is thinking outside the box, or that he's trying something new, or that he's engaging in negotiating tactics. Some have even made jokes about his Gaza proposal. David Friedman, who served as Trump's ambassador to Israel in his first term, cracked on social media, "Mara Gazo" or "Gaza Lago." Hilarious response, so long as you don't mind the President of the United States advocating ethnic cleansing and being willing to throw American men and women into harm's way to make it happen. And by the way, what happened to Trump's supposed reluctance to get involved in foreign military adventures that cost Americans blood and money? Even some usually reliable Trump allies seem to get this point. The Times of Israel reports South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham as reacting to Trump's proposal by saying he thinks, quote, "most South Carolinians would probably not be excited about sending Americans to take over Gaza. It might be problematic." Problematic indeed. Human rights groups, Palestinian representatives and Democrats here at home have blasted the plan. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland called the idea ethnic cleansing by another name. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut warned that Trump has completely lost it and that his plan would, quote, "set the Middle East on fire for 20 years. But it was a former Republican congressman who had just as powerful a response. Justin Amash of Michigan wrote on social media that if the US were to deploy troops, in pursuit of Trump's outrageous scheme, then, quote, "not only will the US be mired in another reckless occupation, but it will also be guilty of the crime of ethnic cleansing. No American of good conscience should stand for this." Is anyone listening to voices like Mr. Amash's? We need to. Right now, the best we can hope for is that Trump simply doesn't mean what he says on Gaza. If that's not the case, and if he does mean it, a new catastrophe looms.
Well, look, Niall, I don't fundamentally disagree with you at all. I don't think getting the U.S. more involved in Gaza is a good idea for a variety of reasons. I don't think there's much public will among the U.S., to do the kind of robust intervention that it would take for us to be responsible for Gaza or repairing Gaza or administering the governance of Gaza that would look something like the reconstruction of Iraq during the Iraq War. There is no public appetite to do that sort of thing again. So honestly, I think it's a non-starter on that basis. I agree with you that it would be some level of moral crime to sweep the Palestinians from their land without their willingness. Now, my maybe point of disagreement, although I don't know how you feel about this, look, I think if the Palestinians, if they don't have to, I don't have to speak about them collectively. If there are individual Palestinians who would like to live elsewhere now that Gaza is a smoking rubble, I think that's fine. And I think plans to negotiate with Arab neighbors like Saudi Arabia to take Palestinians who would like to live elsewhere, again, not force them from their homes, that should be fine. Just as with Ukraine under invasion by Russia, if there are Ukrainians who want to evacuate elsewhere in Europe, I think that's fine. As there were Syrians fleeing the Assad regime, to take the Syrians isn't to endorse the actions of the Assad regime. It's just saying, well, we're happy to have you if you would no longer want to be in that war zone. I think that might ultimately be better for a lot of the Palestinians to make that choice, but I'm not going to make that choice for them or force it on them. I think that would be wrong.
So I think that Trump is talking about it being a collective thing. That clip that we showed said he's talking about all of them. He's not talking about 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 Palestinian families who think this is just too unbearable to continue with. The other issue about neighbouring nations taking them is that is proposed sometimes by Israeli politicians in a way that I think is really deliberately done to try to just dissolve or disintegrate or vaporize the idea of a Palestinian nation. In other words, you push people into Jordan or into Egypt and you say the Palestinians don't exist. And, on the hard right in Israel, that is a view that the Palestinians don't exist, that there are only Arabs and Jordanians and Egyptians. So that's why I think I'm so suspicious of that. Also, I just think that it is insanity to get into the situation where the United States would be an occupying power in the Gaza Strip. That would be ludicrous.
I completely agree. I mean, the reason Israel wants to do that is because Gaza, the Palestinian people, are under the thumb of a terrorist organization that has attacked Israel, and probably their view is, well, if the Palestinians cease to be a Palestinian people because they've been absorbed into several other countries, then the strain of terrorism that exists among this group gets broken up and absorbed into other groups of people, where diluting the penchant to choose terrorists to run them, right? Except the Israeli thinking.
Yeah,
that's also the reason Saudi Arabia and Egypt, etc., don't want to take them in, because then they get a more radicalized populace.
Yeah, but except that, people like Netanyahu now and for several years have been explicitly opposed to the two-state solution. So the question is, if you're Benjamin Netanyahu and you don't want that to happen, how do you relieve the pressure? And one way of relieving the pressure is effectively destroying or dissolving the sense of the Palestinians as a discrete, separate people.
Yeah.
It's a terrible idea all around.
I agree. I don't want it to be the U.S.'s business. I don't think we know what's best for the region. I don't think we know what's best for the Palestinian people. I don't think we should pretend that we do. I don't think it would improve matters at all. It would be just akin to our other interventions in the Middle East. So we should find ways to be less and less involved in this distant region of the world, is what I would say. I think we agree on that. Yep. Lots more to get into today on Rising, including more on foreign policy. Stay tuned.